Hello and welcome to the section 6 of our week 5 module 5, which is the project scope management. In this section we'll be discussing the control scope process, and this is crucial for managing and controlling changes to the project scope. Effective scope control ensures that project objectives are met as defined in the project management plan. Now, by the end of this section, you should be able to understand the purpose of the control scope process, identify the inputs, tools, and techniques, as well as the output of the process, and also recognize the importance of scope control in project management. Okay, so if you're ready, let's dive in. Now, what is the purpose of the control scope process? The control scope process aims to monitor and control changes to the project scope. Okay, so when you're making changes to the scope of your project, it has to be critically monitored and controlled. It ensures that scope changes are properly documented and approved, preventing unauthorized changes that could impact the project. Now, this is very critical. Any single change, every little change that you make on your project could have very significant impact on the outcome. All right, and that is something that you cannot take very lightly. Okay, so to prevent unauthorized changes or unnecessary changes, you have to control any form of change to the project scope, and this is very important. Okay, so what are the inputs in the control scope process? Firstly, you have your project management plan, which contains the scope baseline, and this includes the project scope statement, the WBS, and the WBS dictionary. Okay, of course, you know what WBS means. It stands for work breakdown structure. Requirements documentation. This specifies the project requirements, of course, from the stakeholders. Next is the requirements traceability matrix. This helps to track requirements throughout the project. Okay, and then you have your work performance data, which is data on project performance. Last but not the least, organizational process assets, which include scope control procedures and policies as far as the performing organization is concerned. So all these make up the inputs in your control scope process. And let's take a look at the tools and techniques. So what are the tools and techniques that you require for this process? First is the variance analysis. Now, comparing planned scope with actual scope to identify variances. And this is also an important technique. Okay, you have to compare the variances, all right, between the planned and the actual scope. All right, because definitely you're going to have variances. You're going to have slight discrepancies here and there. So you have to be able to compare, all right, and analyze those variances properly. Work performance measurement. Now, this involves assessing the scope performance. Okay, change requests. This is used for necessary changes to the project scope. So whenever you want to make changes to the scope of the project, you're going to have to go through the change requests. Now, the project management information system, PMIS. This is a system that helps with data collection and distribution. So we've already looked at it in detail in a previous section. All right. Oh, but it's important. It's a very important tool that helps you with collecting and distributing your data. Okay, so these are the tools and techniques that make up the control scope process. Now, what do you think are the outputs? Let's take a look. All right, control scope outputs. They include work performance information, and this includes data on scope performance. Okay, so you now have your work performance information showing you how your scope has been performing the work so far. Okay, change requests. These include changes required to control the scope. Okay, like as you make progress within the life cycle of your project, there will be need from time to time to make changes to the scope, right? So in trying to control your scope, there's also going to be some changes made to the scope. Project management plan updates. These includes update to the plan based on scope control. Okay, and last but not the least, you have your project document updates. This includes updates to project documents based on scope control outcomes. All right, so all these are the outputs from your control scope process. Hope you got them handy. Okay, so what are the key takeaways to have in mind from this section? Control scope is essential to monitor and control changes to the project scope. It involves comparing actual scope performance with planned scope to identify variances. Change requests may result from this process, leading to potential updates to the project management plan and other project documents. And lastly, effective scope control helps prevent scope creep and ensures that the project stays on track. Okay, scope creep is simply when the project goes beyond the boundaries, goes outside of what it's supposed to be doing, and start delving, all right, into other activities that are inconsequential, irrelevant to the project management plan. So that's why the scope control is very, very, very important for a project manager. Okay, so hope you got a lot of value from this section. That brings us to the end of the module 5, week 5 of our project scope management process knowledge area in our project management professional training program. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do now is to head over to the quiz section and ensure that you munch the quiz that are related to this particular module, all right, which is the project scope management. Ensure you grab them. They are very, very juicy, each one of them very juicy, I can guarantee you. So head over there now, and I'll see you in the next module. Ciao, ciao.